Back to another episode of Lead Gen and Conversion Mastery. And today we're going to be talking about what I call the larger market formula. And what this is setting up a system to make sure that you're capturing all of the opportunities within your database, not just the slim 3% that are ready to do business with you now, but a way you can catch a broader market, increasing your appointments, your sales, and ultimately your GCI, which is what it's all about. And I'm excited because Brian Curtis has a giant database. He has a ton of experience dealing with speed to lead, creating nurture campaigns, and just building an awesome team. And like me, off camera, we talked about some of the mistakes that we made in the beginning when we didn't have the right system in place to make sure we're capitalizing off of all of our leads. And so first, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about. I'm going to just explain, basically the way lead generation should work, and then I'm going to ask Brian some questions about mindset and some other things that need to be in place in order to make sure that we do this the right way. And so you don't make the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of mistakes that we've made when it comes to lead generation and lead conversion. And so first, I want to talk to you about the old way of doing lead generation and lead conversion versus the new way. And we actually have a chapter in our lead gen and conversion playbook that's devoted to this. And largely, the old way of doing lead generation and lead conversion is you generate a whole bunch of leads, and all of you're focused on is calling the lead once or twice, and you're just trying to do whatever you can to catch what we call the low-hanging fruit. And what a lot of people don't know is that when you generate a lead when that internet lead comes in, regardless of whether it's a Facebook, Google platform lead, the percentages change a little bit, but roughly around 3% of them are only 3% of them are ready to buy right now, meaning like they're ready to do something, do business with you right now. And so we have to have systems set up and to be able to make sure we capture those. But then what about the other 97%? And so this is what we hear all the time is, oh, these leads are horrible, or they're not interested right now, or they're not interested. And so then because maybe some of our coaching clients have not been properly trained on the psychology of the buying cycle of leads and lead generation in general, they can have a poor attitude about it. They can make some bad mistakes, and they can ultimately lose out on a lot of business, because what the pros do, what the best of the best do, and what Brian does now and what I do now is set up systems to make sure we're capturing the other 37% or so that are either gathering information and or are problem aware, meaning they're thinking about it, but they might just not be ready yet, and leading a huge opportunity because leading to a huge opportunity because nobody's focused on them. And then you have the other 60%. Maybe they'll do something a year out or farther out, which you still want to nurture them, but they're just not ready or not interested right now. But it's still important to have a nurturing process set up. And here's an analogy I'd like to give you, and then I'm going to ask Brian some questions. If you were playing football and you were on the 50-yard line, and you obviously know that football is a contact sport, you're probably going to run a different play to score a touchdown than if you were on the 20-yard line. Now, don't get me wrong. Once in a while, you'll see a quarterback throw a long ball to try to score the touchdown from the 50-yard line. Maybe they saw an opportunity. And that's equivalent to what I would call that 3%, right? That 3% chance of going for the touchdown. But most likely, you're going to see that team run plays that methodically works them down the field to make contact, but work their way down the field. But both have the same goal, to score a touchdown. So they're running different plays, and it's the same way when it comes to your lead generation and lead conversion, is that you don't want to run the same play going after the 3% as you would going after the long-term nurture leads, and let alone not run a play at all, which happens most of the time in our industry. You're not like a lot of our coaching clients are not even running the play at all, not valuing the process of working down the field, right? So to speak, going to the football analogy, to then score the touchdown. And so I want you to imagine just for a second to this analogy, how successful football teams would be if all they did was throw the long ball. How successful would they be? But yet,
Not
this
very.
is the strategy, right? This is the strategy that most real estate professionals are building their business on, is the strategy of throwing the long ball, hoping and praying that they score a touchdown. And there's got to be a better way. And that's what this conversation is about, because there is a better way. Brian and I have learned that the hard way. And that's making sure that you have really good systems in place for what we call your A, B, and C leads. And so, Brian, first, I'd like to talk to you about the psychology behind this, because I'm a firm believer, and this is why I love having you be on our coaching platform, because you're really able to make sure that we stop thinking like pros just going after a transaction, and we think more like CEOs to set up things over the long term so we can go and get the next 100 transactions. So what's the mindset? What's the mindset shift that has to happen, in your opinion, when it comes to lead generation?
Yeah, and this might not excite a lot of people with what I'm about to say, but to me, I've redefined a good lead as someone who's willing to have a conversation about real estate.
Mm,
Period. Once I've
interesting.
got someone who's willing to have a conversation about real estate, answer my phone calls, then we're going to rate inside of those. But that is the mentality that I want to start with. Are you willing to have a conversation with me? If the answer is yes, then great. And here's why that's so important today versus when Isaiah and I started in this business. It was much easier to get someone on the phone. There was no spam text. There was no spam. Well, there was little spam phone calls, but it was itsy bitsy compared to what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get somebody on the phone, if you want to be successful in this business, step one, the second someone says hi, get excited, because otherwise you're going to wait. I mean, we were looking at the numbers the other day on a dialer, just a one-line dialer. If you make 100 phone calls, expect to talk to 7 or 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying 7 or 8 people raising their hands and go sell me a house or help me buy a house.
Right.
I'm talking about 7 or 8 people who actually physically pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So first mindset thing for me is the person willing to have a conversation, and is it about real estate? And if those are there, that's a great lead. And if you take that mentality, it'd be much better. And, we were kind of joking in the green room. It's like, for me back in the day, and I had way too many leads. So that's a different scenario. And honestly, I would do it differently now, but nonetheless, it's a different scenario. Most people don't have too many leads. I actually had too many leads. But when people would call me and I would have the conversation about time frame, they're like, you know what, Brian, we're about 6 months out. I said, great, call me in 6 months. Never use that script. Horrible script. Please don't use that. I just want to admit that's what I used to do.
Yeah.
So here's the next piece of mindset. As we go into shifting, it's not really even a shifting market. It's just a shifting approach to how we do real estate over the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I want you guys to consider this too. Isn't a lead that you've been nurturing for 2, 3, 4, 6, 12, 18 months a heck of a lot better than that brand new person who hops on the phone and says, I want to go see a house? Because great. And that's a great lead today. But is that a great lead on August 18th? I don't know. Because we don't have any trust, we don't have a relationship, we don't have anything moving forward with this person. So instead, what we've got is a hope and a prayer that hopefully they'll sign my document and hire me as their agent, basically in, 30 minutes after I've shown them a house.
Right.
And that's going to be a really challenging thing that's going to be out there for a lot of people. So I believe personally, the people who are going to do the best after the NAR settlement are the people who know how to nurture. So when I meet someone physically for the first time, it's not the first conversation that I've had that's more than 5 minutes. We've become friends. We've become, colleagues, whatever you want to look at it. I think that's a really important concept as we move forward is how are you going to nurture people, build that trust? And so when you're asking them to sign documents that we didn't used to ask them to sign, that will be significantly easier versus somebody who says, hey, I'll meet you today at 3:00. What time is it? It's 2. Okay, great. That's awesome when that works and we all get paid, but that's not a business model. That's kind of luck, to be honest.
Yeah, and we don't really want to run our business on luck. We can go to the casino, right? Instead, right? Probably a better shot. So one of the questions I have then is, what should our mindset be? Let's just say I generate 100 leads. right? And I'm generating 100 leads a month. What should my mindset be when I'm going in and setting up a system to work those leads? What should my mindset be? And then what should my approach be?
Yeah, I would say that your mindset should be that you're a salesperson, and initially, until they get to know you, they don't want to talk to you. And that's okay. Just go in with understanding that it's your job to change that perspective. Other mindsets. Our goal, actually, we do a thing called lead day. So basically, leads come in and we have leads. We have basically, we'll call them on duty agents, kind of the equivalent of that. Our goal is a 50% contact rate in the first day. So in other words, lead comes in, and by the way, that's massive. So that's 6 phone calls. That's 3 text messages. Yeah. That is another 3 emails. So if you look at it, we've got 3, 6, we've got 12 contacts or 12 reach outs day one. Now, some people consider that harassment. Sorry, I don't know what else to say. And I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I want to show that, and a lot of that comes to scripting when you get someone on the phone. You've called me you've reached out to me 7 times. What's up? Hey, I was working with company X, and they asked me to reach out to make sure your needs get met. So when you reframe that part of the conversation, it's not me harassing you. It's me doing what somebody asked me to do to make sure you got what you wanted. So there's another mindset thing. So, but here's the thing, long-term. If you don't have at least 30 reach outs in the first month, you don't have enough. And by the way, that doesn't mean once you get a hold of somebody, you keep going. That's not my point. The idea is initial contact, and then I can disposition the person based on the conversation. So, hey, I'm 6 months out. Great, you're this person. Hey, I want to buy a house right now. You're this person. I never want to buy a house. You're this person. And that's about disposition for me. So I'm break it down simple mindset. Understand that your goal should be to reach out a ton the first day, ultimately get at least 30 contacts in the first 30 days until you actually have a conversation. And then dispositioning leads is vital, because if somebody's a year and a half out, that doesn't mean they're not a great lead. It just means they're not a great lead today. And so you've got to have a system in place that's text messages, voicemails, emails, actual phone conversations over time built out so that that person knows that, A, you're professional, you're consistent, and you do what you say you're going to do. Hey, Isaiah, I'm going to follow up with you once a month as we go forward in case things change in your situation. I want to make sure I'm there for you. By the way, feel free to call me anytime. Great. I call them up the next month. Hey, Isaiah, it's Brian, just following up like I said I would. Really reinforce what we're doing there. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And one of the things I think a lot of people have a question in their mind is like, well, what if I'm solo, or what if I have a small team? How do I possibly follow up that much, right? Or what should my cadence be, in the first 10 days? And then what's considered long-term nurture? Like how many times should I, at least those are some of the questions that I might have. So maybe expand on that a little bit.
Sure. We classify our leads as A, B, C, D. Very simple system, right? A is basically between 0 and 90. B is 91 to 180. C is 181 to 360. And then D is 360 plus. Yep. So my A's I follow up with at least every 7 days. We also have a hot prospect, someone I'm actually out going and showing property to, but I feel like you guys got that one figured out. So I'm going to set that aside. My A's, I'm following up with once a week. Because you told me you want to buy in the next 90 days, we should probably be looking at property literally right now. And if we're not, I need to keep following up with you. And I might even make that cadence a little bit higher, but minimum once a week. My B's I'm following up with every 21 days. That's people who are basically up to 6 months out. Now, here's something else I think mentality that agents need to start to get. Just because somebody told you that they were planning on buying in 6 months doesn't mean that they're going to. And it's not because they're a liar. It's not because they're a jerk. It's because something happened. It's because they saw this house and went, all of a sudden 6 months goes away, right? We've all done that with different things in our life. Oh, I'm going to get this. All of a sudden you see this new shiny thing and you're excited about it. And the thing you were going to wait a year for, you bought today. So it's not because they're liars or jerks. It's just because their life changed. So 21 days. C's, which are those over 6 month people, every 45 days. And then D's I follow up with every 60 days. Sometimes I'll stretch that depending on, the person's like, look, Brian, I'm 4 years out. I might not call that person every 2 months. So D's I'll use a little bit of judgment on, sometimes they might even fall into, I'll start following up with them in a year or so, because if you say you're 5 years out, I've still got to take my time and use it as the highest and best. I think sometimes people get confused by this idea that, oh, I've got to follow up with everybody all the time, no, that's ridiculous. At some point in time, you got to do that. Here's the other thing. Start top grading your leads that you're working, and every other lead goes on automation. So, too many people are trying to work 200 leads, 300 leads, 500 leads at a time. To your point, you don't have enough time to follow up with them on a long-term, consistent basis. So there should be a group of people that are just on automations. And then when they raise their hand, then they go into the other group. But it's constant top grading for me. Think about this. If you had 50 people who told you they were going to buy in the next 6 months, and only half of those people actually did, and then only half of those people actually worked with you, that's still 12 transactions in 6 months. That's pretty good for most real estate agents.
Yep.
Up that to 100, and now you're doing, 25 transactions every 6 months. So it's top grade for me when it comes to my leads.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because one of the things that we focus a lot on is the rule of 100, and that's for somebody that knew it's harder to do that. You got to work your way up. Might be the rule of 20, then the rule of 40, and then the rule of 60. But essentially, what we do is we focus on the rule of 100, where if we have 100 people, if we can get to the point where we have 100 people in our A list, our 30 to 60, or what we call our 30 to 60, 90 list, we pretty much know, like clockwork, we're going to get somewhere between 15 to 20 listings out of that one list of 100 if we nurture them the right way. Now, we also have the another rule that we set in place. We call it the law of 10, or the law of replacement, where we try to replace for every one transaction. We know we're going to need another 10 in that 30 to 60, 90 for every one listing or transaction that we get. And it's a little bit geeky in a scientific way to do it. But if you want to even simplify it down, if you have 20, let's say you can get to the point where you have 20 solid people in your 30 to 60, 90, and that's your goal, is to always have 20 solid 30, 60, 90 people that you're following up, and you're following up with them once a week. That's manageable. And then you're doing that, and then you're following the cadence of the, let's say you have another 40 or so that's in the 6 month, and then you have another group. You're really, it sounds like a lot, but if you spread that 100 leads over the course of the 30, 60, 90, maybe some of them are 6 months or so, and you got really good at just following that rule of 100 and nurturing the A, B, and C list, and then making sure that you're adding to it as much as possible to keep to that rule of 100. I'll tell you what, you develop a really good balance of bringing new business in and then nurturing the leads, and that always almost will lead to a high 6-figure, if not 7-figure income, just by kind of following that simple formula. That's what we, it's similar to what you're talking about, Brian, is, and if you can develop a model around that, then you can scale it. And then it gets really fun as you start adding team members and you start getting more and more leads. And then you can start saying, okay, what would happen if we got 200 people in our 30 to 60, 90? What would happen if we got 300 people in our 30? And you can start scaling it up that way, and it starts getting really, really fun to look at. But most people, I find, are not even looking at how many people they have in their 30 to 60, 90. Now, why is that important? How many people are on your A list? When I first coach anybody, my first question, one of my top 10 questions I'm going to ask them is, how many people do you have on your A list? Well, Isaiah, why? Why would you ask them that question? Because in real estate or any high ticket service that you're doing, service offering, whatever you do in this set of 30 days is going to be a reflection of what your 90 days from now looks like.
Yep.
And it's like the law of gravity. You can't avoid it. It's just how it works, is whatever work you put in now is going to be a reflection of what your 90 days is going to look like. And so the first thing I ask is, how many people are you working and nurturing that are on your A list? And usually the answer is I don't know. And folks, if you take anything away from what Brian's talking about and what I'm talking about, is lead generation is just one part of it. It's what's your mindset? How driven are you, and how motivated are you to make contact and develop relationships? And what system are you following? Like Brian, you can tell he's got a system. My system's very similar. It's a little bit different, but I have a system. Very similar though. And that system is we need to make sure we're working our pipeline. So folks, if you want to get off the transaction treadmill and create some consistency in your business, I'm not saying it's ever easy to create consistency in this business, but to create some consistency in this business, follow what Brian's talking about here. Develop your own version of A, B, and C, and D, and start getting motivated and driven by nurturing those relationships, and watch what happens 90 days from now. But Brian, I think here's the bigger problem, in my opinion. It goes back to what you said about, we were talking about mindset. You see the pro, it's just going after the next transaction. So they're not thinking past who they're talking to right now. And that's the problem why most people get stuck at 15, 20, 30 transactions. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you go and you get a bunch of stuff under contract, and then you quit doing these things, and then you get, so it's just, I call it the real estate roller coaster. Yeah. I've heard it. And here's another thing you were on a roll, didn't want to interrupt you, but this is the thought that I had. Most people, when they have a good month or a bad month, so I just don't want to focus on the good, just on bad months, but let's say you go back and it's June 30th, or, it's almost May. It's May 31st, and you're like, man, how was my May? Well, if you say it was great, don't attribute that to what you did in May.
That's right.
Don't attribute that to what you did in April. What did you do in March and February? Because that's where it was. And if it was less than what you wanted, if it was bad, whatever word you want to use there, don't go back to 2 weeks ago, because what you did 2 weeks ago, you're going to be looking at in August. So this is one of the things that people miss. I don't understand. Well, I've been working my butt off for the last 30 days. Yeah, but what were you doing the 30 days before that? Or, man, it's kind of been on cruise control for 30 days, and yet I'm still having all these closings. That doesn't mean you don't have to keep working, because it's going to reflect someplace. It's one of the great problems with real estate is leading and lagging indicators. So closings are a lagging indicator of what you did 90 days ago. They're not what you did yesterday, last week. And so I think too many real estate agents forget that. And they're just like, I don't understand why this is happening or this is happening. Go back 90 days, you get a much better answer.
Yeah, and largely, we all have to take accountability for our results. But I want to share with you, if you're listening to this, and this may be a new revelation to you, maybe you've never been taught this before. Maybe it's not that you have been doing this on purpose. Maybe you just haven't been around the right people and you haven't been taught this. And folks, this is also the CEO mindset. The CEO mindset surrounds themselves with people that have been where they want to go, because they know they don't know what they don't know. If that makes sense. In other words, there's so many things. If you're at stage 1 or stage 2 in your business, you're doing somewhere between 0 and 6 figures, and you're trying to get up to mid 6 figures to 7 figures. There's so many things that you just don't know that until you have made the countless mistakes like we do, you're not going to even uncover them. They're not even going to be on your radar. Probably like this conversation, because guess what? It wasn't on my radar when I first got in. I had to go out of my way and try to, out of pure frustration, figure this stuff out. Right. And so the reason why I bring that up is that I think it's really important that you put yourself in a group of people, whether it's our group or another group, but people that are learning to think like CEOs. Because that's what's going to take your next level. It's going to start off with a mindset. And that's why we devote a whole day. Like we have several different coaching calls that we run with our coaching. And every Monday, Brian does a Mindset Monday call, teaching people how to think more like CEOs and how to have breakthroughs in their personal and their business life. Because at the end of the day, if we don't think right, we're not going to act right.
It's really unbelievably simple what you just said, and it's really also amazing how many people just ignore what you just said.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, so here's my biggest pet peeve of the last 24 months: grit. Okay, grit works. I'm not saying it doesn't. If you get up every day and work your butt off and hate your life and all that kind of stuff, you'll make some money. But the problem is eventually you're going to burn out, and you're going to burn out twice as fast. You have to have a mindset that makes you say, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to do it, and I'm motivated by it. Now, if I ask, I'm not even going to ask Isaiah. I know this. Isaiah does not get up 100% motivated the second he wakes up every day. I know that because he's a human, and that's not a diss on him. It would surprise me if there's anybody. And there's a lot of gurus out there who say they get up motivated every single day. I don't think they do. I think they have a process to get themselves motivated every single day. Those are different things. And at the end of the day, if you think that the time that you're going to be successful is when you get motivated, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have to get up, come up with a plan, figure out how to get through some of the tough times, and then motivation will come when you start to have success. So it's a double-edged sword, motivation, right? And so I just want people to understand that you're going to have to start making an organized plan to be successful. And the days of being able to do that, of not doing that, I think are gone. Maybe they'll come back. I don't know. But why would you want to live that way anyway? I did it for a while.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Plug into a proven system. And so if you're interested in learning how you could license our proven lead generation strategies, you can license our proven lead conversion strategies. So you don't have to go through all the pain and agony of figuring this out and take the years and years to figure it out on your own. If you want to license our patented service and support systems that we have in place and our operational blueprint on how to scale a team and build a multi-million-dollar business, and you want to learn how to license these things and then be part of a really dynamic, value-driven mastermind group and coaching calls, and what you want to do is, in the comments, you'll see a link somewhere around there. You can actually watch a 7-minute video that summarizes what the program is all about. And if that intrigues you, we'll actually do a private strategy session with you. And that strategy session will break down a 90-day game plan, transformational game plan, to make sure that you have a true selling system in place. Because that's what we're talking about here, is we're putting a selling system in place. So that way you're not on the transaction treadmill. You're not just depending on your grit and grind. You're learning how to do real estate and do business the right way. You're making the transition from a professional to a CEO, and you're developing, most importantly, I believe, an operational blueprint over time to not just go after one transaction, but to really build a system to build a legitimate, viable business to go after the next 100 transactions. And that's really what we're talking about here. So if that intrigues you, you'll see a link somewhere around here. And Brian, thanks for the commentary as always. Such an important topic. We could probably talk about this for 4 hours and still not have covered it all. So we encourage you guys to check it out and share this information. I believe it's so important for realtors to know what we're talking about here, so they don't make the same mistakes. So we appreciate you help share the information, and we'll see everybody next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.